Hello, loves! Welcome to Murder Mystery Monday. We are currently going through a 20-year-old cold case, a fictional one. We're going through the book Murder in the Family by Cara Hunter, and we've reached episode 3, I think, in the book. I forget what percentage we're at. Let me just open it up and check. We're at 44%. We had to unfortunately leave off halfway through a witness interview because I had a family obligation, but I'm going to start the interview over so we can catch up on everything. But before I do, let me run you through a couple things. First of all, this is a total sidebar, but I am obsessed with this lip gloss. TikTok got me. And it's a lip stain as well as a gloss, not sticky. And it reacts to your pH levels. Hello, I am really, I need to lean this way. The sun's coming right through this time of year. It reacts to your pH levels, so it will turn a different color for every person. And this is sort of a wine shade. It's the one that turns the least bright pink on me. I really like it. TikTok has a few fun things to shop for. And then the other thing is the book itself, the case we're working on. Let me run you through, if you're new and haven't seen this yet, my clue board. I use Milanote for this and have organized it so that we can keep everything straight in our heads. Let me read you the book description real quick, in case any of you are new and don't know. It's a shocking thriller about a cold case, a fictional true crime series, and the family caught in the middle. 6 episodes, 1 killer. It was a case that gripped the nation. In December 2003, Luke Ryder, the stepfather of acclaimed filmmaker Guy Howard, then aged 10, was found dead in the garden of their suburban family home. Luke Ryder's murder has never been solved. Everyone present around the time of the murder swears they saw nothing. Despite a high-profile police investigation and endless media attention, no suspect was ever charged. But some murder cases are simply too big to forget. Now comes the sensational new Netflix series Infamous, dedicated to investigating and perhaps cracking the famous cold case. This production team will re-examine testimony, re-interview witnesses, and once again scour the evidence. The family will speak, the key players will be reunited on camera, the truth will come out. Are you ready to see it? It's so cool what we've learned so far. So let's see. Actually, first, before we continue, let me know if you can see and hear me okay in the comments. Even if you're normally a lurker and you don't typically comment, if you just wouldn't mind letting me know whether or not this live is sounding good and looking good. Otherwise, I'm in a pickle. So I need some audience participation in this one thing, if you wouldn't mind. But what we've learned so far is that Luke Ryder is our victim. This is where he sustained his final blows, I guess. Let's rewind a bit before we learn about Luke and figure out who our key players are. Remind ourselves who our key players are. So Guy Howard is the director of this fictional show called Infamous. He was only 10 when the murder took place. A little bit of family tree history. Andrew Howard and Amanda Granger got married, had Rupert Howard. Amanda died under mysterious circumstances. Then Andrew married Caroline Farrow, who was the family au pair. She was the nanny to Rupert, which is all sorts of a little bit creepy. She was quite young. There was a bit of an age difference. And then Andrew died under some mysterious circumstances. It looked like a heart attack to everybody involved, but as we all know, us true crime fans, heart attacks can be faked by one means or another. These two, though, had 3 children, Mara, Amelie, and Guy. Now, Caroline, after Andrew died, married Luke Ryder, who was Rupert's friend. They met around college age, And Luke is quite a bit younger than Caroline, or so we were led to believe until last episode. So a little bit about Luke. Luke's real name is Eric Fulton. He was passing himself off as a very young Australian person who now lives in England, married Caroline. Turns out he was really in his 30s, not his 20s, as he claimed. He stole an ID, a passport, off of somebody else in a bus accident, apparently saw an opportunity to have a fresh start, and took it. And nobody knew. Basically, the passport was so damaged, he had to request a new one. So it would have had all the correct information, his face, but someone else's ID. And he was able to live that way for right up until his untimely demise. So there was a head injury, as we can see here on the report. There were no signs of a break-in. The perp knew the entrance code because there's a gate that leads into the house. There were no security cameras, despite it being a rich neighborhood. And there were 40 minutes between when the victim was last seen and first found. Now, we have some suspects. And these are being added as we go. So this is where audience participation is super needed and would be super lovely. Since I'm going to be reading it off my Kindle, I'm absorbing the information we're getting at a delayed rate. And you guys have already found some cool inconsistencies that have made the clue board list. So if you would like to help me solve this thing, comment the stuff that you find that sounds weird or doesn't seem to add up, or people you think need to be on the board. Lists of clues you think should be added. Because I can't remember everything. That's why we have this. But for now, here are our suspects. Caroline Howard, who is the wife of Luke Ryder. She was thought to be a victim for a hot minute. Not a victim, a suspect. Until we sort of proved that wrong. She had no apparent motive. She likely didn't commit the crime due to an inheritance. Luke had an inheritance coming for him by his grandma. But if Luke died, Caroline wouldn't get the money, so that wouldn't have benefited her. She was at a party at the time of the murder, and people at the party did notice that her shoes looked a little bit muddy and grubby, like she had been outside in a garden, perhaps murdering someone, but the host of the party mentioned that a lot of people stepped out of her backyard to smoke, so that's probably where the grubbiness on her shoes came from, not from murdering anyone. Rupert has no apparent motive. He insists he wasn't in London at the time of the crime, and remember, Rupert is the son of Caroline's first husband, but they are not blood related. He is the friend of Luke. I know the book has basically proven him to be innocent at this point, but I'm still holding out some personal suspicions about Rupert. Because if he had known about Luke's false identity, that would have really upset Rupert, I think. He claimed to not know. He seemed genuinely surprised in the interview we read when someone told him that Luke's identity was not real, that he was actually Eric Fuller, is that right? Eric Fulton, I was close. We also have a mystery caller that called in between the time of Caroline leaving for the party and Luke getting murdered. Don't know who it was. It was a payphone and was never identified. Other than that, we also have Mara, who is Caroline's daughter, oldest. She and Amelie came home from a party and then waited 22 minutes after finding the body to call Caroline about the murder. One of you actually noticed this little indiscrepancy, and no, not indiscrepancy, inconsistency, discrepancy. But see, I would never have put that together without your help. So, like I said, audience participation, greatly appreciated. We also have an investigative team. Is this gonna zoom out for me? There we go. We have Alan Canning, a retired senior police officer, Mitchell Clark, a freelance journalist, Hugo Fraser, an attorney, Layla Furness, the only lady on our team, she's a forensic and clinical psychologist, J.J. Norton, a forensic investigator, and William R. Serafini Jr., a private investigator from New York. Now, let me run you through the timeline of the day of the murder, just to refresh ourselves on what actually happened. As we discover things, we are adding to this list, but for the past 1 or 2 episodes, we haven't had to add anything. So if something pops up where you feel like it needs to go on the board, let me know. At 8:35 a.m., Caroline leaves to drive Guy to school. Guy was 10 at the time. And then the girls, Amelie and, I just totally forgot her name, Mara, go on foot. It's a very walkable neighborhood. 9 a.m., cleaner arrives, Beatriz Alves. 9:15, Caroline returns to the house. 9:46, phone call from dry cleaner. 11:15, Caroline leaves for lunch. 2 p.m., Alves leaves. 2:37, mysterious phone caller, lasted 2 minutes, 33 seconds. Probably too long for a wrong number. I can't remember the last time I made a wrong number call or answered one, and it lasted almost 3 minutes. It usually lasts about 30 seconds. 2:45 p.m., Caroline returns from lunch. 3:30 p.m., Caroline leaves to collect dry cleaning and pick up Guy from school. 4:15, Mara and Amelie return from school. 4:45, girls leave for party. 7 p.m., girls leave party. Why did I say that weird? Girls leave party. 7:15, girls have pizza. 8:15, Caroline took the girls to the movies in Notting Hill. Not sure what time this happened, but Caroline returns home, and Luke says he's not going to go to the drinks party they were planning on going to. This was a last-minute change. We're not really sure if there was a fight about him missing it, but I'm assuming Caroline wasn't pleased. But due to the mysterious phone call, we're thinking that's why he decided to duck out and say, I've decided I don't want to go. 9 p.m., Caroline leaves for the drinks party. 9:30, Guy is sent to bed by Luke. So Guy was promised by Caroline, we found out, to be able to stay up late so that he could watch this special show. It was a weekend or a Friday night, so he wouldn't have school the next day. But Luke sent him to bed early anyway, knowing this agreement had been made. At the same time, at the party, Caroline was seen speaking to Phyllis, who was the host of the drinks party. So at the time Guy went to bed, Caroline is accounted for. At 9:35, up to 10:20, somewhere around there, the murder occurred. At 10:30, Mara and Amelie returned home from the movies. They were driven, but they walked back. I thought this was strange until I realized it was a very walkable neighborhood, and in England, which is where this whole thing takes place, walking places is very common. America doesn't do that very often unless you're in a city, but in, like, the place I live, you don't walk places, you drive. Or at the very least, you ride your bike. And that's even rare. So that, I'm thinking that's not that's not an important fact. 10:52, Mara called Caroline at drinks party about the murder. This was the 22-minute discrepancy that one of you discovered. At 11:30, police arrive at party to retrieve Caroline and bring her home. This, I won't go through it too much in detail, but this is some important documents. The victim's neighborhood, all very walkable. Here's Dorney Place, which is the house. The cinema is here. It's so tiny I can't even read it. Holland Park Primary, which is, I think, where Guy went to school. And then this is the girls' school. So really just a few blocks away from everything. This is the blueprint of the property of the house. So the dead body was found here. And then there's a blueprint of the house itself, all the different rooms, floors, that kind of thing. We haven't really had to know much about this blueprint, but I feel like it's going to come in handy pretty soon here. We're almost halfway through the book, so I think we're going to be... Could you not see any of what I was scrolling down? That's odd. Nope, I was showing you all of that and you can't see it. Wonder why. I I will have to fix that at some point. I'm so sorry. If you'd like to see the clue board, I have it working correctly in other live streams that I've done, so you can always look back at that. I will see if I can fix that because it's looking correct on my screen. Weird. But let's start the interview over that we had to stop halfway through to remind ourselves what's going on. At this point, the investigators are trying to figure out the grandma situation, the inheritance situation. So the grandma had a grandson named Luke. She had never met Luke in real life, but she left her inheritance to him. I can't recall just at the moment, might remind ourselves once we read it, whether or not she left it to him originally, or if she left her fortune to him after Luke met her, fake Luke met her, and made a really good impression. He was quite the charmer, and the grandma was apparently enamored. So, we're gonna hear from someone named Sylvia Carroll. She was the person who mainly took care of the grandma in the nursing home. And we're gonna get her feedback, her firsthand experience of Luke and the grandma. Cut to interview. Sylvia Carroll is seated in a lounge area of a care home. There are chairs with plastic seat covers arranged around the edge of a large open space, and a TV on in the corner showing a cooking program. Sylvia is a large, middle-aged woman with dyed auburn hair in a ponytail and a turquoise overall. She has a nose ring and several piercings in both ears. Sylvia Carroll. I'm trying to remember the accent I gave her. I re-watched last episode just to remind myself. Let me get into the groove of it. Flo was one of the nicest residents I've ever had to look after. She's always easy to get on with, never made a fuss, not like some of them. Hugo Fraser, off camera. How long did you know her? Sylvia Carroll. Must have been about 7 years. Yeah, from when I started at Lakeside to when she died in 2006. Cut to montage of photos of Florence Ryder taking part in activities at the care home. Bingo, seated keep fit, a Christmas party with paper hats and crackers. There are several images of her with a younger and thinner Sylvia. They're both smiling, and Sylvia has her arm round her. Hugo Fraser. She left you a very nice gift in her will. That jewelry, the brooches and bracelets. Sylvia Carroll. Yeah, that's what I mean. She was such a lovely lady. She wanted me to have them. Hugo Fraser. Quite valuable, too. Diamonds, emeralds. Sylvia Carroll, flushing slightly. Like I said, she wanted me to have them. She said she didn't have any daughters or granddaughters, and I was the nearest thing. It was all above board. The lawyer did it in the will. Look, I hope you're not suggesting... Hugo Fraser. No, I'm not suggesting anything. I'm sure you were like a granddaughter to her. Sylvia Carroll, still looking wary. I was, actually. I looked out for her. No one else was, that's for sure. Hugo Fraser. So no one else visited then? No one else in the family? Sylvia Carroll. When I first started at Lakeside, she told me that she didn't have any family. That was why it was such a big surprise when that Luke turned up. Hugo Fraser. Luke? Sylvia Carroll. You know, the grandson. The one that got killed. You must remember him. It was in all the papers. Hugo Fraser. You met him? Sylvia Carroll, smiling. Of course I met him. I was there the first time he came. He'd written beforehand, saying he wanted to come, and was that okay? But the manager was defo a bit wary at first. You know, people turning up out of the blue and claiming to be long-lost rellies. It isn't always legit, but he was. The lawyer checked him out. Hugo Fraser. Mrs. Ryder's lawyer? Mr. Hempworth, yes. He wanted her to make Luke take a DNA test as well, but she refused. Oh, he wanted, the lawyer wanted. Said the passport and stuff was enough. That demanding a DNA test would make Luke think she didn't believe him, that he'd be insulted. Hugo Fraser. Interesting. And I'm guessing it came as quite a shock. For Mrs. Ryder, I mean. Him turning up like that after all these years? Sylvia Carroll. I know. I remember overhearing him saying as much to the manager. How he'd wondered initially whether it was the right thing to do, and the last thing he wanted was to cause Flo any distress. That was so like him, always worrying about other people. I think she may have had a little crush. What do you guys think? Hugo Fraser, so you liked him? Sylvia Carroll, smiling again. He was a bright charmer. Quickly, oh, not in a bad way. I didn't mean like that. I just meant he was really nice. All the old ladies fell in love with him. He knew exactly how to talk to them, flattered them, teased them a bit, you know. He had them eating right out of his hand. And of course he was very good looking. Made a nice change round here, I can tell you. We all looked forward to him coming. Hugo Fraser, and Mrs. Ryder liked him too. Sylvia Carroll, she adored him. He was her blue-eyed boy. She was always teasing him about his accent. I remember her telling him once that she couldn't believe her Brian could have produced a gorgeous boy like him. That's 'cause Luke isn't really Luke. Hugo, that makes it sound like she saw him a lot. Sylvia Carroll, oh yes, he used to come up a couple of times a month on that flashy motorbike of his. Hugo Fraser, really? I mean, even with a motorbike, it's a long way. London to Ambleside? Sylvia, I know, but he didn't seem to mind. I think he genuinely enjoyed her company. They made each other laugh. Hugo Fraser, did he ever bring his wife? Sylvia Carroll, no, never saw her once. He never talked much about her, not that I heard anyway, or about his parents. Hugo Fraser, didn't that strike you as strange? Sylvia Carroll shrugs. Not really. I know there'd been some sort of family tiff before his parents left for Australia, though I don't know what it was about because Flo never talked about it. And after Luke reappeared, she just wanted to move on. Let bygones be bygones. Sorry, pause. My leg is falling asleep. I need to move. Rearrange my legs under the desk. There we go, that's better. My chair is going to squeak a little more, but we'll just ignore that. And it wasn't anything to do with Luke anyway, was it, that row? He wasn't even born. He was just pleased he'd plucked up the courage to try and contact her. You know, before it was too late. She was in her 80s, remember? She knew she didn't have that long left. Hugo Fraser, but given that, do you know if she'd ever tried to contact her son herself, before Luke turned up, try to bury the hatchet? Sylvia, I don't know. If she had, it hadn't worked. But I reckon she wouldn't have known where to start to find them. Not with them being so far away. Hugo Fraser, in fact, Brian had died in 1993. There you are then. Hugo Fraser, how did she react when Luke was killed? Sylvia, devastated, inconsolable. She wanted to go to the funeral, but it was too far. She sent the most beautiful wreath. Dahlias. I sorted it out for her. Hugo Fraser, did the police come and see her? Sylvia, oh yes, more than once. That tall bloke, Peter something? Hugo Fraser, Peter Lascelles. Sylvia, that's it. Quite a nice bloke. He did his best, but the poor old girl was in such a state, I don't think he got much out of her. And what could she tell him anyway? Like I said, she didn't know anything about Luke's life in London. Hugo Fraser, I imagine he was asking her about her will. Who would get the money now that Luke was dead? Maybe. You never met Margaret Wilson or her son? Sylvia Carroll, her face hardening. No, but I knew all about them. Hugo Fraser, and? Sylvia Carroll, they turned up at the home after Flo's funeral with a bloody lawyer, would you believe? Wanted to go through her stuff, make an inventory. Accused me of exerting undue influence on a vulnerable, elderly person because of me getting the jewellery. They obviously thought that should have gone to them as well. The greedy, she inserts a word here I won't say, throwing round accusations like that. I could have lost my job. Hugo Fraser, that must have been very upsetting. I'm guessing, though, from what you just said, that you hadn't come across them while Mrs. Ryder was still alive? They never visited? Sylvia Carroll, I never saw hide no hair of them. And thankfully I wasn't on duty when they came poking round, or there'd been ructions. Hugo Fraser, did she ever talk to you about her will? About who'd she'd planned to give her money to before Luke got in touch? Sylvia Carroll. Not really, but she never mentioned the bloody Wilsons, that I do know, not once. Cut to studio. The studio, by the way, is where all of our investigators are bringing the information back to each other. So they're all going off in different directions, interviewing different people, and then they reconverge in the studio. This is J.J. Norton. Round of applause for Hugo, I think. That was an impressive piece of interviewing. Mitchell Clark, laughing. Yeah, anyone would think he'd done this sort of thing before. Layla Furness. It certainly put paid to any doubts we might have had about whether Luke could fool Florence. She was obviously deeply regretting the breach with her son. But all those years later, switching accents, but all those years later, she had no way of doing anything about it. So when someone turns up saying he's her grandson, she accepts him at once. Psychologically speaking, she was primed to believe. No wonder she refused a DNA test. Bill Serafini. I agree, Layla. Though my principal takeout was Ian Wilson. He clearly had one heck of a motive, and definitely doesn't sound like someone who'd have taken the loss of that sort of cash lying down. General agreement around the table. Hugo Fraser. Speaking of which, I had that chat with Peter Lascelles about how far the Wilsons were in the frame at the time. Cut to Hugo at a desk with a phone on speaker in front of him. Hugo Fraser into the phone. Peter, it's Hugo Fraser. I'm working on the showrunner series with Alan Canning and Bill Serafini. Peter Lascelles. Yes, they mentioned you were on the team, and I'm aware of you, of course. Hugo Fraser. We've been looking at the issue of Florence Ryder's will, and whether that gave rise to any viable lines of inquiry. Peter Lascelles. Ah, the Wilsons. Hugo Fraser. The Wilsons, exactly. Peter Lascelles. Well, as you will appreciate more than most, the investigation remains open, officially, at any rate, so I'm limited as to what I can say publicly. Hugo Fraser. Understood. Peter Lascelles. But speaking hypothetically, in a case where certain parties could have a substantial financial interest in the death of a victim, we would always carry out a thorough investigation as to whether A, they were aware of this financial interest, and B, if they were indeed aware, whether they also had the means and opportunity to carry out the crime. Hugo Fraser. Our working assumption on A is yes. Peter Lascelles. You may think so. I couldn't possibly comment. As the saying goes. Hugo Fraser. Did you establish if the Wilsons had solid alibis for the night of the 3rd of October 2003? Peter Lascelles. Let's just say that neither Mrs. Wilson nor her son were ever charged. That is, of course, a matter of public knowledge, as no charges have yet been brought against anyone in this case. Hugo Fraser. Do you know where Ian Wilson's now living? Peter Lascelles. He moved abroad, I believe, in fairly short order after the murder. But as to where, I'm afraid I have no idea. Pause. Sorry, I haven't been much help, have I? Cut to studio. Hugo Fraser. So that's where we are. If we take Lascelles' word for it, neither of the Wilsons were in the frame for the murder back then. And, to be honest, I'm not sure a woman could even carry out an attack like that, especially one as old as Margaret would have been by then. Pause. I don't know about that. I feel like... I hope this browser works if I switch over. Give me a second. I want to see if I can do that. Okay. Did that work again? Nope. Oh, guys, I'm sorry. The web browser is not working as it should, but I wanted to look at the victim injury body chart. There is a blow to the back of the head, and I feel like a woman could absolutely inflict enough injury to kill someone if that woman caught someone by surprise, like an unexpected blow to the back of the head. If that person went down, because you'd be dazed and confused at the very least, if not immediately unconscious, you wouldn't have anybody fighting you back. So I feel like him saying that is a bit of a red herring. Something to throw us off of any potential suspects, like one of the daughters, Mara or Amelie, for example. Mara, we know from past interviews, she's the protective one. She's the one who always takes care of problems. She didn't elaborate on that, but we have text messages back and forth between her and Amelie, and she basically said, I'll take care of it, Em, like I always do. So just keep that under your bonnet. Moving forward. And again, so sorry about the web browser not working. I will fix that for next time. And to be honest, I'm not sure a woman could even carry out an attack like that, especially one as old as Margaret would have been by then. Alan Canning. I've seen cases where women were capable of that degree of violence, though they were almost always under acute mental or emotional pressure at the time. I just had a thought. No, wait. Scratch the thought. I was thinking that Luke was the one who had an affair, but I'm incorrect. It was his wife. It was Caroline, who was heard having an affair by Amelie. And I had it switched in my head, and I thought, what if one of the girls, but not accurate. Ignore me. This is why I have a clue board, guys. It's too much to keep in my head. J.J. Norton. Domestic abuse victims, you mean? Alan Canning. I don't know why I give him such a geeky voice. It just feels right. Alan Canning. Primarily, yes, but none of those crimes came out of a blue sky. They were the last act in a long drama. Layla Furness. I agree. For a woman to attack someone she'd never met and do it that savagely just for money without any personal grievance at all, you'd be looking at someone on the psychopathy spectrum. Which, of course, is not impossible, but the odds are very much against. J.J. Norton. That still leaves Ian. How old was he then? 28? He'd have been more than capable. Layla Furness. And he's someone Luke might have opened the door to, even if they'd never met. Luke would have known about the Wilsons from Florence, so he wouldn't see them as a threat. Ian could have spun a line about her being unwell, then as soon as he gets inside... Alan Canning, nodding. We definitely need to try and find him, and investigate that alibi of his too. Bill Serafini. Agreed. Turning to Hugo. Why don't I have a word with Peter Lascelles? Off the record. Cop to cop. See if he might be prepared to give me more of a steer. Hugo Fraser, rather acidly. Be my guest. Bill Serafini. So, next up is the hit and run the real Luke Ryder may have been involved in before he left Australia. Any news on that, Mitch? Mitchell Clark looks up. Actually, yes. Something that could be quite significant, I think. As we discussed last time, the press coverage said that the victim was in a coma immediately after the accident, so we had no way of knowing when or even whether he actually died. So I started by doing a trawl of death records for the Sydney area for the 2 months after the date of the accident, to see if anything stood out. That gave me 5 fatalities, where the cause of death was listed as multiple blunt force trauma injuries resulting from a road traffic accident, but obviously no details of where and when those accidents happened. So I then cross-referenced those names with the listings for the Coroner's Court of New South Wales. But again, I'm afraid no luck. Nothing at all referencing an incident for that day in that area, which suggests to me that either the victim didn't actually die from his injuries, or if he did, it was somewhere else, or some considerable time later. J.J. Norton. Well done for persevering. I'm getting a headache just listening to it. Mitchell Clark. Mitchell is the journalist, and so I give him a fast talking voice, kind of like the male Lorelai Gilmore. I don't know. Again, just feels right. It was erring on the thankless side by then, I'll admit, which may be why my helpful police contact decided to take pity on me. He wouldn't give me any actual details, but he did drop a fairly heavy hint that the victim was a student, and maybe that could be a useful angle to pursue. To be honest, when he said that my first was Sorry. Ah. Sorry, I got a text. Pause, please. There we go. It was erring on the thankless side by then, I'll admit, which may be why my helpful police contact decided to take pity on me. He wouldn't give me any actual details, but he did drop a fairly heavy hint that the victim was a student, and maybe that could be a useful angle to pursue. To be honest, when he said that, my first thought was of, bloody hell, how many students are there in Sydney? But then I thought, with an accident that serious, maybe there'd be something about it in a student newspaper. My journo contact thought I was wasting my time, but I've always been a belligerent sod. Bill Serafini. Well, it clearly paid dividends this time. Mitchell Clark, smiling. Certainly did. Though it still took bloody ages because there was nothing online back then. But I did eventually dig up something on the Sydney Technology College website. Their alumni section has PDFs of the student rag going back to the 1980s. He taps his keyboard. An image appears on the screen. And this is what I found. Let me see if the camera will pick up the image. Oh, look at that. It kind of is. Can y'all see that? That's not bad, actually. The Spec, the magazine of NSW Technology College, home of the Rosellas. Class of 96. I would like to offer my warmest congratulations on behalf of all teaching staff to everyone graduating this summer. Your hard work and application paid off, and a bright future awaits. Line out, the line out. What a year the guys had. A great cup run in the Shoot Shield, notching up some record-breaking scores before losing narrowly in the quarters to the eventual champions. Continued on page 3. NSWT, senior picked for Olympic swimming squad. Jamie Broderick has confirmed his place in the 2000 Olympic swimming squad after a stellar performance in trials in Brisbane in early December. Continued on page 5. Mo Khan, a tribute. You'll have all heard by now that Muhammad Khan has sadly died as a result of a hit-and-run accident after a night out with his mates in November. No one who knew Mo will forget him, and not just for his weird Palm accent and his terrible jokes. He was a good mate, a more than passable spin bowler, and would have made a great engineer one day. 19 is way too soon to go. We'll miss you, Mo. Rest in peace, mate. Hugo Fraser, under his breath. Death by Comic Sans. That's funny. Mitchell Clark. If you couldn't see the image very well, it's very classic. All the fonts that a student would use, we've all been guilty of using them in our younger years. Those are the fonts and graphics that were used. Use your imagination. Mitchell Clark, going over to the screen and pointing to the Tribute article. As you can see, the date's about right, and the details of the accident tally as far as they go. And if you remember, when I first spoke to the Sydney police, they made it pretty clear that the victim's family had moved heaven and earth to keep his name out of the press, which made us think that the person in question was either somewhere or with someone they shouldn't have been. Bill Serafini. Right. Mitchell Clark. And given this lad Muhammad Khan had been out with his friends before this happened, it's a fair bet they'd been drinking. I can easily see why a devout Muslim family would want to keep that out of the press. Bill Serafini. Were you able to find out anything about the family? Mitchell Clark, shaking his head. Afraid not. Nothing really, beyond what you can deduce from this article. The key point for us being that they were from the UK. But Khan is such a common name in the Muslim community that even if we knew which city they were from, it wouldn't be a lot of help. Alan Canning. And we can't be 100% sure this is the right guy either. I mean, I assume your police officer contact wasn't prepared to go as far as to confirm it. Mitchell Clark. No, he wasn't, so you're right. We can't be absolutely sure. This is just an informed guess. Layla Furness. And as we've said before, Luke may have had nothing to do with any of it. It could all have been just a coincidence. Mitchell Clark. Right. All we have is the proximity of the accident to where Luke was working, and the fact that he upped and left the country less than a week later. Alan Canning. Police officers don't like coincidences. If it was my case, I'd still want to investigate. Bill Serafini. Likewise. Mitchell Clark, well, I'm not sure how much more we'll be able to find, but Tarek is on the case now. Let's see what he and the team can find. J.J. Norton looks around the table. I think I'm up next. Clears his throat and opens his file. Excuse me, pause. Drink break. As we agreed last time, I took another look at the forensic evidence to see if there was any chance further testing might yield any results, specifically on the clothing, and guess what? They never actually tested it. Layla Furness. They never tested the clothes at all. Seriously? J.J. Norton. I know it sounds like someone dropped the ball, but you need to remember this was 2003. DNA testing was much more rudimentary back then, and it was also way more expensive and took weeks to do. And let's not forget, the body had been in a downpour, so all things considered, I guess the SIO didn't think it was worth his budget on the off chance something survived the rain. Bill Serafini. SIO? J.J. Norton. Sorry, Senior Investigating Officer. But on the positive side, what it does mean is that we can now get the clothes tested ourselves, and who knows what we might find. Layla Furness. So how do we go about doing that? Alan Canning. I'll call the officer who's handling the file. It'll be someone in the cold case unit. Layla Furness. Not so much cold as permafrost, if you ask me. At least as far as active inquiries are concerned. Bill Serafini. Well, that's why we're here, isn't it, Layla? Looking around. Do we need next of kin permission or something like that? I'm not up to speed on all your British procedures. Alan Canning. The police can apply for further testing. They don't need agreement from the family. Let's just hope the Met play ball. J.J. Norton. They might, given what else I found. As we know from the file, 3 hairs were found caught in the zip of the rider's jacket during the original investigation, but they weren't tested in 2003 because none of them had roots. But as some of you may be aware, we can now extract DNA from hair samples like that. It's fiddly and pricey, but it can be done. Layla Furness. Remind me, what colour were the hairs? J.J. Norton. Mid-brown and undyed, which ruled out Luke himself, as he was blonde, and also Caroline, because her hair was bleached, but that's as far as they could get at the time. Bill Serafini. All the same, it's presumably reinforced the Met's working hypothesis that Caroline was not the perp. But from what you say, JJ, I think we should definitely put pressure on the police to go for testing now. Alan Canning. I can pick up on that. Though we need to remember that even if they do get something, they're not going to give us full access. The most we could hope for would be a steer. Layla Furness. Well, a steer is a lot more than nothing at all, which is all we have right now. Bill Serafini. Thanks, Alan. Appreciate it. And in the meantime, this sounds like my cue. I love how Bill and Alan sort of have a frenemies thing going on. Like, they're both top of their game, and they both think that they're the top dog. And considering the fact that Bill Serafini is not even English, he's a New York private investigator, and he's pretty much taking charge of this whole thing. He's directing everybody. He's keeping everyone in line and organized. I feel like Alan doesn't love that. And I just find it funny. Bill gets to his feet, goes up to the board, and starts pinning up photos. Abandoned industrial sites behind wire fencing, derelict one-story homes, wide roads, telegraph poles. This, my friends, is North Birmingham, Alabama. Population 1,273, a high proportion of whom are African American. Once a thriving industrial district, it's now a Rust Belt town. Drugs, street crime, and prostitution are rife, and household incomes are well below the national average. So it's hardly at the top of a tourist's bucket list, though there is one thing that's on our side, even if it's a suburb of a big city. In other respects, it's just a small town. Just like a small town, meaning that everyone knows everyone else's business, and people like to talk. J.J. Norton. Which definitely makes your job easier. Bill Serafini. Right. Though this one took some diplomatic handling, I can tell you. Remember, as far as everyone in the North Birmingham area was concerned, Eric Fulton died in a bus bomb in Beirut more than 2 decades ago. So remember, Eric Fulton is Luke Ryder's real name. And here I come, parachuting in out of nowhere, telling them that not only did he not die then, he actually stole the identity of the guy who did. Mitchell Clark. I see what you mean. J.J. Norton. So how did you play it? Bill Serafini. Smiles. Very, very carefully. Cut to Bill in short-sleeved shirt and sunglasses by a high chicken wire fence. The building behind looks like a school, with a concrete basketball court and a stars and stripes flag hanging limply from a pole. The light is very bright. Bill's standing with a man in his 70s, who's wearing a check shirt and baseball cap. Subcaptioned, Frank Tappan, former Little League coach. Frank Tappan. Oh, so this is Alabama, so Southern accent. Frank Tippin. Geez, I haven't heard the name Eric Fulton in over 20 years. This is such a departure from British. I'm so sorry. That just tickled me. Okay, sorry. Geez, I haven't heard the name Eric Fulton in over 20 years. Bill Serafini. You taught him ball back in the day. Frank Tappan. Yes, sir. Eric was quite good. Oh, wait. No. I'm right. Sorry. I was thinking... Never mind what I was thinking. I got confused. Eric was a good kid. Quiet. Never gave me any trouble. Even though it was obvious he hated every minute. Mainly because he was no good at it. It was his dad who made him play. Bill Serafini. What did you know about the family? Frank Tippin. Not so much, to tell you the truth. There were 3 brothers. Eric was the youngest. His mom worked in a supermarket and his dad worked 2 jobs. Eric was always in hand-me-downs that were too big for him. Both his brothers were way taller than he was. Bill Serafini. Do you remember the brothers' names? Frank Tappan. Can't say I do. I never had no dealings with him, just with Eric. Bill Serafini. Does the family still live around here? Frank Tappan. No, sir, not for a while. Mr. and Mrs. Fulton both passed away, and I don't know what happened to the other boys. Though they're not living here, that I do know. Bill Serafini. Did it surprise people when they found out that Eric had been in Beirut? Frank Tappan. Could have knocked me down with a feather. To tell you the truth, Eric had never seemed like the adventurous type. I was surprised he even had a passport. Most folks here don't. Bill Serafini. Was Eric living here before he left for Lebanon, or had he already moved away? Frank Tappan. Nah, he hadn't lived here for a few years. Too small, I reckon. And not just the town. Bill Serafini. How do you mean? Frank Tappan. Small town, small minds. I think Eric had gotten tired of that. Moved to New York, I believe. I can't vouch for the truth of that, but that's what people said. Cut to bar interior. Wood-paneled walls, beer posters, and printed mirrors. A couple of good old boys at the counter. The woman at the table with Bill has white hair, deeply wrinkled tan skin with withered hands, but she has a twinkle in her eye all the same. Subcaptioned, Nancy Kozlowski, former teacher, North Birmingham High. Bill Serafini. So, Nancy, why don't you tell us how you fit into this story? Nancy. I'm saying Nancy because I don't think I can pronounce her last name more than once. I was Eric's 11th grade teacher, class of 82. Bill Serafini. But you took more than just a teacher's interest in him, right? What? Nancy. I was fond of him, if that's what you mean. Poor boy needed some mothering. Oh, okay. I was thinking an interest. Don't get me wrong. His mom was a real nice lady, but she was a little ditzy, sort of absent, shall we say. And as for his daddy, well, Jim was a hard nut, a decent hard-working man, yes, no arguing with that. But he hated weakness, especially in his boys. The other 2 he approved of, but Eric was different. Bill Serafini. How so? Nancy. You have to remember this was the 1980s, and it was, and is, the South. Attitudes take their time to change here, and some never do. Eric wasn't like the other kids, and I can tell you now it frightened him. Children hate to stand out, whether it's... he just needed to surround himself with other folks who would think the way I did. He dropped out the end of that year and left town soon after. If his mother had known it was my doing, she'd never have forgiven me, but I don't regret it, Bill. I don't regret it at all. Bill Serafini. When I spoke to Frank Tappan, he said he was surprised Eric ended up being in Beirut. What did you think when you heard about that? Nancy. I didn't believe it at first, I don't mind telling you. I'd had a card or two from him in New York, and he seemed real happy, real at ease with himself. I just don't see what could have made him decide to leave, especially for some place like that. Bill Serafini. Do you still have any cards you sent? Nancy. No, they're long gone. I do have those photos we talked about, though. Cut to montage of pictures of Eric Fulton at school, in various class lineups, receiving a prize, attempting to play baseball. He's clearly small for his age, with soft blonde hair and a shy, timid smile. Nancy. That prize was for best handwriting in class. Kind of fit somehow. He was such a nice, polite little kid. Cut to studio. Bill is on his feet at the board. The photos we just saw are now pinned up alongside the rest. Bill looking round the team. This feels like one of those, are you kidding? Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Moments. Layla Furness. I have to get out of the southern accent now. Well, what I'm thinking is that this Eric Fulton doesn't sound anything like the Eric Fulton who impersonated Luke. I'm struggling. Wait a minute. Hold on. Let me get my brain wrapped around British now. That is really hard, switching between... Woo! One bleeds into the other. Okay. Well, what I'm thinking is that this Eric Fulton doesn't sound anything like the Eric Fulton who impersonated Luke. Bill Serafini. That's what I'm thinking, too. Thank you! That's what I was thinking! That doesn't sound right. Because, yeah, no, we're missing something. Okay. Hugo Fraser, dryly. That was a bit of a giveaway. Layla Furness. It's not just that, though, is it? There are some similarities, yes. Hair colour, eyes, that sort of thing. But this Eric is small for his age, whereas Luke was tall. Luke was athletic, and this Eric wasn't. Luke was outgoing. Eric was shy. Taking it all together, I think we have to conclude that... J.J. Norton. The Eric Fulton who died in the bus bomb was not the Eric Fulton from North Birmingham, but someone else entirely. What? Mitchell Clark. You think we have the wrong Eric Fulton? Well, I suppose it's not that unusual of a name. Bill Serafini, shaking his head. No, I've checked and double-checked. This is the right guy. Or rather, this is the right passport. There's a silence. They're all processing. I'm processing. J.J. Norton. Are you saying... Bill Serafini, nodding. That the guy who married Caroline Howard wasn't Eric Fulton any more than he was Luke Ryder. That's exactly what I'm saying. We're dealing with a serial imposter. What? Oh my word. Okay. Alan Canning. Saying exactly what I'm thinking. Hold on. One step at a time. The real Eric Fulton from Alabama. The one you were just talking to those people about. He moved to New York when? Bill Serafini. 1982. He was 17. Alan Canning. So he starts a brand new life, out and proud in the Big Apple, until at some point, years later, the future Luke Ryder steals his passport. Bill Serafini. No, I don't reckon it happened quite that way. Remember what Frank said about Eric being a homebody? No, I don't reckon it was Eric's passport that was stolen, for the simple reason that I doubt he ever had one. Just like 96% of my fellow Americans. Alan Canning. So you're saying our man used Eric's name and details to get a passport issued in that name, without the real Eric knowing. Bill Serafini. Right. Alan Canning. Sits back and folds his arms. Bit risky, wasn't it? What if the real Eric had suddenly decided to take a holiday to Torremolinos? I can't say that word twice. Bill Serafini. I don't think that was very likely. Dead men don't go on vacation. Alan Canning. You think he was already dead? You sure about that? Bill Serafini. As sure as I can be. Alan Canning. Do you have any evidence? Bill Serafini. Not actual evidence, no. Hugo Fraser. Then how can you be so certain? Bill Serafini. Instinct, plus 30 years of experience. And the fact that it's the only workable theory. Layla Furness. So what do you think happened? Bill Serafini. I think the real Eric Fulton died in New York. Died or maybe got killed. Remember, the city was still dealing with the AIDS crisis as late as the mid-90s, and he would definitely have been in a high-risk group. Add to the fact that the NYC was in the middle of a crack epidemic and fatal shootings were a daily occurrence. Trust me, you didn't have to be a drug dealer to get caught up in that. Just in the wrong place at the wrong time. J.J. Norton. It could have been a hate crime. Oh, sorry, wrong voice. It could have been a hate crime if Eric was openly homosexual. Bill Serafini. Afraid so, sadly. Layla Furness. So our serial imposter finds out some way or other that the real Eric Fulton has died, and knows enough basic info about him to apply for a passport in his name. Bill Serafini. That's my assumption, yes. And our thief was in luck. No one back in the North Birmingham knew for certain where Eric was. There was no Facebook to fall back on, as we've said before, and they'd have found it hard tracking him down any other way. As far as the folks back home were concerned, Eric had gone completely off the grid. Hugo Fraser. And the next they hear is 1997, when he turns up dead in the Beirut bus bombing. Only little do they know, but the dead man isn't him at all. It's some surfer dude from Calgary called Luke Ryder, and our mystery man has now walked off with his identity instead. What was this guy up to that he had to keep changing his name? Bill Serafini. That, Hugo, is what we need to find out. Layla Furness. Do you have a theory, Bill? Bill Serafini. Well, yes, I do, as a matter of fact. Alan Canning, under his breath. Why am I not surprised? Bill Serafini, ignoring him. I think we're dealing with a con man. A very clever con man who always managed to stay one step ahead of the law enforcement. Layla Furness. What sort of cons are we talking about? Bill Serafini. The worst kind, at least in my book, i.e., up close and very personal. I think he chose people who would be either too ashamed or too humiliated to come forward to the police. People who would blame themselves for being duped. J.J. Norton. But even so, they'd still have friends and family who'd want the perp caught and locked up. Bill Serafini. Precisely, which is exactly why I think our man kept having to disappear. And what better way to disappear than faking your own death? Alan Canning. Just about plausible, I suppose. The whole idea is rather too Sunday night drama, if you ask me, but I suppose stranger things have happened. Layla Furness, to Bill. I'm guessing you think most of his victims were women? Bill Serafini. Yes, I do. And I suspect they were older than him, too. Maybe even significantly older. Remember what Sylvia Carroll said about him being a charmer? That he knew just how to sweet-talk the old ladies in the care home? Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying all his victims were quite that elderly, but all the same, it speaks to a talent for gaining trust, for breaking down reserve. Mitchell Clark. Topped off with a truckload of good old-fashioned laying it on thick, that famous charm of his. Bill Serafini, smiling dryly. Yes, that too. Hugo Fraser. I buy it that someone could in theory be so ticked off with this guy that they pursued him all the way to London. Alan Canning, turning to him. But how do you think your average Joe would have managed that? In practice, I mean. Tracked him from New York to Camden Hill via Greece, Bali, who knows where else, including bloody Beirut. Mitchell Clark shrugs. Any journo worth the name could have had a go, and Bill managed it in a couple of days. Alan Canning. Bill has access to a team of professional researchers, not to mention contacts in law enforcement. Bill Serafini with a self-deprecating smile. Well, that sure helps. These two crack me up. Layla Furness. So you think this con man was actually in New York in the mid-90s? Weren't you in NYPD yourself then? Bill Serafini. I was. Layla Furness. But you don't remember anything like this at the time? Bill Serafini, smiling. It's a lot of years ago, Layla, and it's a big city. But let's see what the guys back home come up with. J.J. Norton. So, no cliffhanger to end with, Bill? You're losing your touch. Bill Serafini breaks into a laugh. Well, I'll try harder next time, JJ. Fade out. End credits. Text messages between Amelie and Mara Howard. Oh, I love the text messages. Okay. These will probably be very good. 18th of May, 2023, 8:49 a.m. I'm sorry, Am. I just had a call from Guy. Something's come up. Remember, Amelie and Mara are Guy's sisters. Guy is the director of this whole show, and he's the one trying to get Amelie and Mara interviewed. Mara has willingly been interviewed. Amelie has not. So I'm thinking there's some differences between what Mara will say in an interview and what she will say to Amelie in text form. I'm sorry, Em. I just had a call from Guy. Something's come up. I knew this would happen. So what is it? They're going to bring up the therapy thing. What? That stuff is private. He said to say sorry. Says he tried to call you, but you didn't pick up. Sorry, Em. He has no right to put private stuff like that on showrunner. There's something else. It's going to come out about that fire at school. It's like 1,000,000 years ago, and it was an accident. I know. I'm sorry, Am. Stop apologizing. None of this is down to you. It's Guy I'm ticked off with, not you. I know what you mean. How about we start airing his stuff in public? How would he like that? Best not go there. Best not go there? What has he done? And then we have a series of emails. Date 2005-2023, 10:54, from Alan Canning to Gordon Evans at Met Police UK. Subject, hello. It's very Alan of him. Gordon, I can't remember if I replied about the sports and social do, but I think I should definitely be able to make it. Not sure about the golf day yet, as it will depend on my filming commitments. On which subject, the show is proving interesting and, as you rightly suspected, not as straightforward as it initially appeared. On which subject, I seem to remember you used to have a contact at NYPD. Am I remembering that right? If so, I'd appreciate a discreet word. Kath sends her regards. All best, Alan. Date, Saturday, 2005-2023, 15:30, military time. From Hugo Fraser. To Serena F. Hamilton at hhllp.com. Subject, Dad's birthday. Have you given any more thought to where you'd... Oh, sorry, Hugo, not Mitchell. Have you given any more thought to where you'd like to go for lunch? I was wondering about Ozymandias. You know, that place by Holland Park Tube. He's always loved it there. And thanks for your understanding about the other thing. Like I said, it's no big deal. I just want to keep things simple. H. Is Hugo talking to a lady? It's to Serena. Interesting. All right, everybody put that in your bonnet. Voicemail left for Bill Serafini by David Schulman, 20th of May, 2023 at 3:41 p.m. I don't know what accent he has, so I'm just going to read it normally. Bill, it's David. I got your message, and thanks for keeping us in the loop. Clearly, we will be very interested if there are any further developments. Either way, let's catch up when you're back in New York. Oh, he's New York, okay. Date, Sunday, 21/05/2023, 16:50, from Mitchell Clark to Layla Furness. Subject, just checking. Hi, Layla. Sorry to bother you at the weekend, but there was just something I wanted to check with you. It's about Mohammed Khan, that student in Sydney. I just stumbled over a paper you gave at a conference back in 2002 before you got married. Your maiden name was Khan, right? I realize it's a common name, so I assume it's just a coincidence. Hope you don't mind my asking. M. Okay. I mean, it's a common name. Let's not get too excited. Date, Sunday, 21/05/2023, 16:58. Oh, she replied 8 minutes later. From Layla Furness to Mitch Clark. Subject, just checking. Ha! Well spotted. And yes, it's just a coincidence. Cons are almost as common as Smiths. By the way, I think you're handling this whole thing really well. You're the only one of us outside the family who's been touched by this personally, and I know it can't be easy having to rake it all up again after such a long time. Let's just hope we can give both you and the Howards some closure. See you next week, Elle. I think you're handling this really well. You're the only one of us outside the family who's been touched by this personally. What personal connection did he have? Did he have a personal connection with Luke and that's why he showed up the night of the murder? Were they friends or something? Or was he friends with Caroline? Caroline was having an affair. What does Layla know? I need to know answers. Voicemail left by Layla Furness for her mother, 21st of May, 2023, 5:23 p.m. Hi, Mom. Hope you're okay. I forgot you were in Karachi this week. Can you give me a call when you get back? Love you. Bye. The end. Not end, but like episode end. We are now going to be starting episode 4. I need a minute. I need a minute to process. Okay. So Mitchell had a personal connection with something to do with the murder. Someone in the family. He could have been dating one of the daughters. Who knows? We also have... What was the other thing? Mara and Amelie are for sure hiding some things. They've got some stuff in their past that they don't want Guy or the TV show to air. And Guy's getting all up in their business and they're not happy. I already assumed that, but I like that we have confirmation now. And then Alan is kind of going behind Bill's back, talking to someone from the NYPD, which is very interesting. I totally expected that, though. And then my heart really did get racing when Mitchell was like, hey, Layla, I remember your maiden name was Khan. I thought, is there going to be a connection there? I mean, she could be lying. She could be totally just breezing it off, you know, like, oh, no, it's just a misunderstanding. It's just the same as, like, Smith. I think the whole point is to get us to not trust anyone, and it's working. I also don't know if we should just stop it for tonight or keep going. Anybody who's watching right now, can you let me know in the comments, would you like me to start episode 4 right now, and we'll get through a little bit. We have about 45 minutes until I would want to end, which gives us quite a bit of reading time. Let me know right now, even if you're lurking and don't usually comment, I would love to know if you'd like me to continue. Because part of me really wants to continue, but this is such a good stopping point. I don't know what to do, you guys. I'm also still really annoyed that my web browser is not working as it should. I just want to try one more time. Nope. Nope, it's not going to work. Well, you can't see that I'm doing this, but I'm going to tell you what I'm doing anyway. I want to write down some little factoids. I'm going to grab a note from the side. Let's see. Comment. There we go. I'll organize this later, but I want to write down those little pieces of information we just learned. So for starters, Mara and Amelie are hiding things. Therapy, school fire, and Guy. Can I... Oh, I can't, okay. Oh, that's cool. It shows up like a text message. Guy also has things hidden in his past, which I'm sure we could have guessed. And then let's see. Oh, Layla's maiden name is Khan. Just so we know that. And then, what was the other thing? Mitchell. Mitchell has a personal connection with the family. Is there anything else you guys think I should write down that you think is important? Any little clues that we haven't mentioned yet? Anything? I think we're all good for now. So I think just because this is such a great stopping point, I am going to leave it here. Sorry to leave you in suspense. I'm leaving myself in suspense, okay? This is no more fun for me than it is for you, I'm sure. But things are heating up for sure. What percentage are we at now, actually? Let me check that. We are at 53%. Okay, we are halfway through this thing, which is great. So we're making headway. Are you... I'm sorry, I have a special guest wanting to say hello. Let me turn the webcam back on.
Oh, there we go. Hi.
Hello. For anybody who doesn't know, this is my brother.
Hi. You've probably seen me on a lot of her videos.
Yes.
Not enough of them.
I mean, whose choice was that?
Mine.
Yes.
Not
my fault. That smells amazing, and I can't eat any of it because I have a garlic allergy.
Is that focused in there?
Yeah.
Papa John's. I got some garlic breadsticks, cheese, and sausage. And this is fresh, so this is like soft.
Torture. Total torture. Papa John's used to... Stop it! Papa John's used to be my favorite pizza before my food allergy.
You want to do a bite? Apparently, I asked, their breadsticks, at least, have no... If you get the garlic ones, obviously they have garlic in it. But the just the normal breadsticks are just pre-made stuff, but there's no garlic in it.
It may still have contamination in the kitchen, though.
They can fix that if you ask for it.
You asked about that?
I did.
That's funny.
I know you like this stuff.
I know. I have to home make my pizza now, guys.
It's not the same as eating the pizza, but at least you could have a breadstick.
I would, if I could have Papa John's pizza one more time with no allergy reaction. Oh, man. That would be perfect. That would be heaven for me.
I mean, I have it right in front of you. You want
no, I said without an allergy reaction.
Nibble?
No,
nibble, Cassie?
No, thank you. I'm fine.
A little munch? A little chomp?
I'm good, thank you. Go away.
Coward!
You paying for the hospital bill? I don't think so. Oh, brother.
Shame her, chat. Shame her. Shame.
There's currently only one person watching, so the shame will not be that big.
Alright, so I just need you to spam shame in the chat to make it look like there's a bunch of people.
I don't even know if they can hear you at this point. You're so far away from the mic. He's just talking utter nonsense. Nothing that you're missing. But with that, I'm going to leave it here. Thanks so much for watching. I wanted to remind you that we do this every single Monday unless something external is happening in life where I can't make it. I try to make this a commitment every single Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard. We're, again, going through the book Murder in the Family by Cara Hunter. And once we're done with this book, I already have another book lined up for us to go through. So let me know your thoughts, your suspicions, the things you want answers to, all in the comments, whether you're watching live or watching after the fact. This is so much fun. I hope you're all enjoying, and I will see you in the next one. Oh, before we go, I'm going to reward all of you who are watching to the end with a little sneak peek of something coming to the Joy Club, my online clothing boutique, very, very soon. This one I made specifically for the Murder Mystery Monday people, okay? Are you ready? Sneak peek coming in 3, 2, 1. Ta-da! This design is murder themed. This is going to be available in a t-shirt. It's going to be available hopefully in a blanket. And the collection that I'm going to be launching is Bookish Essentials. So it's going to be all book themed. This is obviously a murder mystery book theme. I love it. The little doggy. the little doggy on the front. We've got nice Easter eggs, you know, little gloves to hide your fingerprints, magnifying glass, some roses that just all feels very clandestine and everything. And then there's a marble bust with some suspicious red markings on it. Wonder what happened there. Couldn't tell you. But that is coming to the Joy Club very, very soon. So keep your eyes peeled for that. I will let you all know when it's available. And I will see you in the next one. Thanks so much for stopping by and listening to this whodunnit. If you made it to the end, leave a magnifying glass emoji in the comments so I know which of you stuck around. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Love you guys. Mwah. Bye.